My name is Daniel, and I'm an addict alcoholic from the Harbor area of California. I had a normal childhood growing up until I was about 6 years old. My dad came out of prison and wreaked havoc on my normal life. After that, I had really bad depression from the abuse and the verbal abuse and neglect that my father put on me and my mom. Saw a lot of violence as I was a kid and lost the normalcy that I had. Started living in hotels because of my dad, or due to my dad having my mom lose her job. She couldn't afford the rent anymore, so that was rough, and it put me around a lot of sketchy people growing up. Middle school, I was at a Christian school. My grandfather put me there after I moved in with them. I was the one outcast in the entire school who didn't really believe in God. I got into a lot of trouble there because of that reason. The first time I ever used, I was 12. Me and my cousin were both about 12 years old. I had a stigma about it. I didn't want to do it, but my cousins kind of used my fear of my father against me. And they told me, if you don't do this stuff with us, we're going to call your dad and say you did it anyways. That scared me enough into doing it with them. I just remember all the anxiety, the depression, all the doubts and emotions that I felt at that young age kind of get lifted off of my shoulders, like a weight was lifted off of my back, and I felt at ease. After that, I got caught by my father immediately after. He still caught me. Tried to ground me for a year until he went back to prison, and then I was able to do whatever I wanted again after that. So I went to a normal high school, and there I didn't know anybody. I was pretty much an outcast still. I started on ecstasy, and I did that until my brain was fried practically. Still had that anxiety, and it was worse now because my serotonin levels got all messed up from all the ecstasy. So I needed an out, and that's when I found my first drug of choice, which was Xanax. The way that made me feel was pretty much fearless. I became a little kleptomaniac. It made me fearless, and I think that's what I was looking for because I had so much fear built up inside of me. From there, it progressively got worse. I just kept taking it. It went from 1 bar a day and losing my first girlfriend to 2 to 3 to using because of the things that I lost from when I was using. And it got worse and worse, and my anger got worse and worse. So one day, I was trying to go to work. Me and my mom got into an altercation, verbal altercation, and she took off and didn't take me to work. I got really irritated, and I punched the wall as hard as I could, thinking my hand would go through the wall. Well, it hit a stud, and I broke my hand, and I went to the hospital, and that's when they prescribed me my first opiate, Percocets. I remember I took one, and one of my friends who I worked with said you should try taking about 4 or 5 of them and see the way they make you feel. So that's what I did. The warmness and the absence of feeling, mixing opiates with Xanax, which is a deadly combination, just made me feel at peace and ease. And I wanted to feel that way all the time. I couldn't stop, and I tried to get prescription after prescription filled. Eventually, the doctors caught on to what I was doing and tried to get me off of them and tried to get me off of my prescription Ativan, but it didn't really matter. I was buying bars anyways off the streets. And there was no off switch for me. I just kept going and going all throughout my teenage to early adult life. I lost people that cared about me, burned every bridge that I possibly could. I was with the girl for 4 years who helped me get my license, and I burned her as well because I cheated on her with one of my supervisors. I had no off switch, no filter. The craziest thing that happened to me in active addiction was my first overdose. It happened 2 days after my birthday. I really thought that I was invincible, and that was the first time that I ever realized that I was human. I got out of my last treatment center and lost the girl that I was dating, my detox girlfriend. So it was only about 2 weeks of active addiction for me, and it happened very quickly. I went from smoking pot right back to fentanyl within 2 weeks. 2 days after my birthday, I was walking with a few of my friends, took enough Xanax to black out, and in that blackout, I smoked enough fentanyl to probably kill 4 men. The fact that they even called the ambulance for them to get me and not ran away in fear of being arrested or anything like that is a miracle in and of itself, and not very many people come back from that. A lot of people just get their pockets checked and then that's it, and they're left for dead. I woke up in Kaiser Permanente Hospital with tubes going up and down my arms, a nurse trying to hold me down, and I threw up blood. The Narcan that they had to give me was so strong that it threw me into precipitated withdrawals almost immediately, and I felt like I was going to die even though I had just died. And they told me that the blood oxygen levels were low in my bloodstream because of how long I had been dead for. And that should have been the biggest wake-up call for me. As soon as I was able to put one foot in front of another, I went right back into it. Like, it was the first time I had taken fentanyl in a while. I was only doing Xanax. I put, after the first overdose, I tried my best to stay off of it, so I was taking my bars again, and it happened again in a blackout. I remember going in, and I came out of the blackout in my uncle-in-law's sketchy-ass motel, and he was like, oh, come and smoke this with me, and I smoked a fentanyl pill out of a crack pipe, and I swear, this is what happened. Like, I took a hit of it, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror because we're in a bathroom, and I blinked. That's what it felt like, a blink. But what really happened was I overdosed and came out, and he hit me with Narcan so quick, it was within 30 seconds. So I thought I blinked, but what really happened is that I overdosed. And then the other one was very similar. My friend had to hit me with the Narcan that I had on me. Like, if I wouldn't have told him, hey, bro, like, just in case one of us falls out, I have something on me that will bring us back. If I didn't tell him that, he probably wouldn't even have known, and I'd be dead, you know? Yeah. It's insane. Like, and I became kind of resigned. I'm going to bring it up to the fact that that death was okay. You know, that actually sounded like a good idea. I was okay with the fact that I was going to die young, and I felt like my life was done. I felt like I used up all the chances that I had, and I was hopeless. But the moment of clarity that I had was my mom, the look on her face. She walked by me one day and she's like, you need help. She didn't say go to treatment. She didn't say nothing. She just the look on her face was like, okay. It made me not think of myself for once. It made me think of what my death was going to do to everybody else. And that's when I'm like, all right, I have to do this. Otherwise, you know, I'm going to affect a lot of people around me. I got to the lighthouse, and the first 3 days, I can't really remember because my mind was so messed up. I just remember on the 4th or 5th day, I saw one of my friends sitting outside and reading the big book early in the morning. I hadn't slept at all for my first 4 or 5 days there. And this like voice in the back of my head that told me to go to church that day when my grandpa asked me to go, and I had track marks in my arm, and my pastor was talking about addiction. Those God shot moments are always in the back of my head. I was walking by and I saw someone reading the big book, and that voice reached out to me and said, ask him if you can read with him. Literally, just like that. And I did. And he said, he kind of hesitated at first. He's like, yeah, man, come on and sit down. And we read 24 to 25, and we read the actor scenario from page 60 to 63. And for the first time, the big book talked directly to me because I didn't have that lens on anymore. And I started to look at my life, the whole spider web and the mess that I created. I started to see it, and I wanted to change it. Even if just a little tiny bit, that mustard seed was planted in me. And that's how I started. And I give all the credit to my higher power and that guy that was sitting there and let me read with him that morning. As messed up as I looked, you know, I looked pretty bad, and he still reached his hand out to me and gave me a jacket, or his best friend gave me a jacket because I didn't have one. You know, just little stuff like that. It made me realize that I'm not alone, and people do care, especially people in this program, which I used to think was a cult. It's not. It's a way to save yourself from an early grave. It's a way to save yourself from insanity. So today what I do to keep myself sober is I immerse myself and take commitments when they're offered to me. I go to meetings twice a day. I do a phone list commitment for the alumni group at the Lighthouse. I co-host and secretary some meetings, and I read the big book every morning. My routine consists of hitting my knees, praying the third step prayer, reading the same pages out of the big book that helped save my life that day. I still read them every morning, even though I have them memorized up here. I still read them. And I reach out. You know, if I need help, I reach out. And if somebody else needs help and they call me, I answer the phone no matter what. And little stuff like that is what keeps me sober today. And without those things, I'd go insane. And today I have sanity and I have clarity as a result of doing what was asked of me. Every suggestion my sponsor gives me, I do it. Because the one suggestion that I didn't follow the last time is what took me out. So they know better than I do because I don't know anything. But what I do know is I don't want to be where I was at.